So today we start chapter 23, perhaps the juicy stuff that everybody was waiting for, the, the topics that bring successes to Netflix and soap operas. We're gonna deal with obsession. And let's read first. All right, and then the reading for us.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Okay. Obsession. 237. Of all the difficulties presented in the practice of Spiritism, among the worst we must place obsession, which is the domination that certain spirits may acquire over certain individuals. Fascination is always the work of little evolved spirits, for good ones never exert any kind of coercion whatsoever. Instead, they provide counsel and fight against the influence of evil spirits. Whenever they are not listened to, they prefer simply to withdraw. Evil ones, on the other hand, latch onto whomever they can control. If they manage to dominate someone, they identify with the victim's spirit, leading the person as if he or she were a were, were a child. Obsession displays many characteristics which we must distinguish precisely and which result from the degree of coercion and the nature of the effects it produces. Thus, the word obsession is a generic term used to designate this kind of phenomenon, whose main varieties are simple obsession, fascination, and subjugation.
Okay, so the first thing that I need to do here is to define obsession. What does that mean in spiritism? And again, in spiritism, perhaps if we go to the Webster dictionary or anything, they will have a slightly different definition of obsessions. Okay, but in spiritism, specifically in spiritism, is what Kardec reads over here, which is the domination of that spirits may acquire over certain individuals. So an obsession is a consistent influence of one spirit upon another. And if you notice over here, it didn't say incarnate or discarnate. So an obsession will be a persistence, consistent and intentional influence of one spirit upon another. It may be that the obsessor be, and I'll kind of call the subject, the one who's being obsessed, okay? So the obsessor and the subject may be both in the spiritual plane. One may be in the spiritual plane and the other in the physical plane, or vice versa. It can be incarnate to discarnate, discarnate to discarnate, incarnate to discarnate, discarnate to incarnate. Either way, it's possible. The little parenthesis that I'll make here is that most often there will be a desire to cause harm of the obsessed towards the subject, but that not necessarily be the case always. An obsession could be unintentional. It could be with the intention of doing something right and end up being something wrong. Okay. You can use an example, let's say a overprotective mother who does not allow that son or daughter, let's put son to make it easier, to go and live his own life. He's always interfering in the life of that son because she feels that that son needs her at her side at all the times, need that son needs her to be making decisions for him all the time. And she does it in a very compulsive, obsessive way, okay? But not out of malice, not out of evil. The end result is always negative, and that's what really makes an obsession. Not having the intention to cause harm, but it's still causing harm. It is still an obsession.
Yeah.
Okay, and one thing that I always say is in this topic, we always see the obsessor as the bad guy, the evil guy. You need to reflect that point also, that perhaps we act in a ways that cause harm to others, but you don't even perceive that you are doing such, right? And I always say that if you're gonna pray in terms of obsessions, let's pray to God that let me not be someone obsessing my brother, my sister. Let I make sure that I'm not the one doing the work of obsessing someone over here, because it could happen. In general, is an established relationship. In general, is a shake of hand between the two parts. In general, it's a summer relationship that is going on for a while. Very often, the one that is obsessing today, tomorrow, you'll be the subject of obsession from the same person. Is like they change roles, which means that very often both parts are in need of education. That to come and accuse the obsessor and look, it's not the solution. The solution in general is education of both parties. Okay. Now, an obsession, again, in spiritism, as we already defined here, just it is for pedagogy, is divided in three types: a simple obsessions, a fascination, and a subjugation. Quite interesting. Simple means exactly that, simple. A fascination is the most complicated one, and subjugate is the strongest of them all, but as not as complicated and hard to deal with as fascination. I think it's a very interesting subject. Let's go through it. Any questions?
Yeah, Elmo, this is, I think you're gonna explain later on, but this is like a one-on-one relation. There's no such a thing. For example, here people talk about, for example, race obsession. You know, doesn't matter who he is. If it's the same race, there's an obsession, that bad thing to persecute or whatever. So in this case, talking about spirits is a one-on-one relation, right?
We are dealing here on a one-to relation, but let's imagine, let's say, a slave master of the past who, just out of pure pleasure, have severely offended and hurt 10, 15, 20 slaves and their entire families. Is it possible that, unfortunately, a good number of those slaves have not been able to forgive these guys, continue to persecute these guys, so that that slave master may have more than one obsessors? But again, it's an established relationship of that slave master with 10, 15, 20 people who were not able to overcome all the pain and is still seeking to make justice to their own hands.
Yeah, but that would be like 20 personal relation. It's not like what I'm trying to get. Like, there's no such a thing as obsession, generalized obsession. Like That's why I mentioned the race. Even though there's hundreds on that case, each one is a personal relationship with that slave master or whatever the case may be.
Yes, yes. So an issue, let's say, of race, of gender, that is a generalized hate, and that's a different thing. It could not be labeled as obsession. I mean, he or she doesn't like individuals because of their colors. It's not an obsession.
Thank you.
Okay, we continue. Simple obsession. 238. Simple obsession occurs when malevolent spirits impose themselves upon mediums into the will in the they receive, impede them from communing with other spirits, and substitute themselves for those who are evoked. No mediums are by the simple fact of being deceived by a lying spirit, because the best mediums are subject to deception, especially in the beginning when they still lack experience. Just as among us, the just as most of us, most honest individuals may be deceived by swindlers. Hence, one may be deceived without being obsessed. Instead, obsession consists in the tenacity of a spirit which the victim cannot break free. In simple obsession, mediums know perfectly well that they are dealing with a deceptive spirit, does not in any way disguise or cloak its evil intentions and its desire to cause trouble. These mediums easily recognize the deceit and on the alert, rarely fooled. Thus, this form of obsession is only unpleasant and only has the inconvenience of making communications difficult with serious spirits or those we are fond of. We can include this in this category cases of physical obsession, which consist in noisy and obstinate manifestations of certain spirits who spontaneously produce raps and other sounds. Concerning this phenomenon, we refer the reader back to the chapter, Some Spontaneous Physical Manifest, number 82.
Thanks. So one thing that I left aside is that important to bring about is that this is the medium's book. This is a book that is dealing with mediumship. So Kardec is bringing the topic of obsession in primarily in relationship to mediums and the mediumistic phenomena. And yet, anyone can be subject to obsessions, not only mediums. Okay, it's not something that happens to medium, it happens to all of us. It probably is happening to all of us. Okay, it's not, but because this is the medium's book, Kardec is presented the topic in relationship to mediums primarily. But what's being written here applies to the general population as well most of the time. Okay, and so a simple obsession is the one that is done primarily by more unevolved spirit who are out there more to disturb things out of fun, out of being completely inconsequent, not really having too much input of him or herself in this thing. It's just doing it for has nothing else better to do, basically. Is the ones that usually will not bring very serious consequences to us. In cases of mediums and mediumistic phenomena, they'll try to pretend to be someone else, do sort of fun. It's quite easy to be picked up for someone who is paying attention to things that it's an obsessing spirit. It's someone who just want to be completely disruptive to that medium or to that mediumship group, and finding that medium a some kind of organic affinity, at least that that spirit will use. They may try to use it consistently, use that medium and to be disrupted, to have his little fun. It's not great consequence, doesn't have much to gain or to lose. It's just doing because someone sent him to do it, or because he's just having fun of doing it, or just because is already following that medium for quite some time and I want to know and rather have this medium go and be doing something else with their time, so that be disruptive, but it doesn't really generate any great consequences of its playing time, so to say. Now, when it comes to physical phenomena with the noises, the manifestations of physical phenomena, of course, there must be in the vicinity a medium of physical phenomena who can provide the necessary ectoplasm for those things to take place. Okay. Comments, questions? Okay. Fascination.
Fascination. 239. Fascination has much more serious consequences. It refers to a delusion created directly by a spirit in the thought of a medium, which in a certain manner paralyzes his or her capacity to judge the quality of the communications. Fascinated mediums do not believe themselves to be deceived. These spirits manage to inspire them with a blind confidence that prevents them from realizing the deception and comprehending the absurdity of what they write, even when it jumps out at the eyes of everyone else. The delusion can reach the point to where it causes them to consider the most ridiculous language as sublime. Those who think that this type of obsession can only touch simple, ignorant, and senseless persons are mistaken. The most refined, educated, and otherwise intelligent individuals are not at all exempt from this kind of delusion, which proves that we are addressing an aberration produced by an outside cause whose influence dominates them.
Okay, can stop there.
Continue.
Yeah. So you see that we're dealing here with between simple that are called first degree obsession and to fascination, which you can call second degree in intensity of obsession, there is a huge gap. Now the fascination carry very drastic, difficult consequences. Usually the primary cause of fascination is the medium's pride, the medium's vanity, the medium's desire or need to be recognized, um, the medium's need to place him or herself in some kind of a competitive game with other mediums. I'm a better medium than he or she because look what I can do with my mediumship. Look who I received here with my tremendous mediumship. Once we, as mediums, we start to put ourselves in that kind of state of mind, we're at a very high risk of become fascinated, or become victim of spirits who will not miss the opportunity to use that medium. And happens exactly that the greatest problem and difficulty that I said to be the most complicated to deal with is exactly because of this. Fascinated mediums do not believe themselves to be deceived. That is the greatest and most difficult thing for us to deal with when an individual does not believe that there's nothing wrong, that everything's okay, everything's perfect, everything's truthful. You guys do not understand. I do understand. The hardest thing to know to convince someone to stop smoke is the one who says, smoke is fine, smoke is good. There's nothing wrong with smoke. I smoke and I feel absolutely fine and perfect. You're just not going to win that battle. The same thing with fascination. The difficult, the most important problem is the individual does not believe to be deceived. He will receive the most absurd things. He read it as if it is the most eloquent possible thing. You will see individuals, unfortunately, we had a very sad opportunity to see that happens with individuals who are so well prepared. They have tremendous amount of knowledge of the doctrine, very well educated people. All of a sudden start to write things and takes a different path that we have to question what's happening here. And there is only two possibilities, at least in my ignorant mind, or that person have a severe psychiatric problem, severe uh, psychiatric health issues, or that person is being completely fascinated. And when you rule out that the person is not crazy, then unfortunately you end up with the individual unfortunately being fascinated. And one, of course, we have to be careful to not jump into conclusions, okay? But when anything proceeds for quite some time in that direction, it becomes pretty clear that unfortunately, and we scratch our head and say, no, not he, not she, that's impossible. He or she, they know too much. They could not be a victim of that. But that is the thing, we don't know people that well. Nobody knows other people so well. Nobody knows what's in my heart, what's in somebody else's heart, and what the intelligence of their heart pretty much dictates our ability to become fascinated, not really the intellectual intelligence, but more the intelligence of the heart. So what really makes it so difficult to deal with is exactly that. They do not believe that they're being deceived. And even more important in general, they will be absolutely convinced that everyone else is wrong and only he or she is right. Very, very hard to deal with. And again, the primary cause, unfortunately, is pride, it's vanity.
Hey, is there any good side of the competitiveness?
The what?
The competitiveness.
If there is any good sign in competitiveness,
Yeah. I
oh,
mean,
maybe in sports, but in mediumship, no, I can't see it.
because I was reading the definition here, and for example, for a medium that sees a more experienced medium that works his way intellectually and morally, and delivers beautiful messages and experience work with more often, let's put that way, with not high order, but more elevated spirits. And we saw in the mediumship meeting sometimes they describe things that puts us in awe. So would be wrong for a medium aspire to be like that, to want to experience like that, to have that, because in society we are created, we are raised, like most of us, to be competitive with pretty much everything. So why a mediumship would be different? Why would us change our nature, even though might be for a good purpose?
Okay, I think first thing is you have to define functions and where can you do our best, when can we be our best. Very often, a lot of time people ask me, oh, you are a PA, why didn't you go to medical school? And my answer is, oh, well, because somebody needs to be a PA. And I'm just happy to be a PA and be the best PA that I can be, and let the doctors be the best doctors that they can do. So perhaps each one of us, we have functions, positions in a leadership group and a leadership meetings that we do the best that we can, that role that we feel. And to seek to be as good as X, to seek to be as good as Y, I do not make it, I'm not gonna label that as being competitive. It's just try to reach, to become better, to reach a step above what I am today. And that is good. Now, to say I want to be better than he or she, I wanted to do more than he or she, that's not health. But to say to use someone as an example and try to be as good as that person, that's different. To use that person as a model for all the right reasons, that's good. That's not really competitive. The competitive is when you try to be better than he or she. But then again, I go back because different individuals have different functions, and they should try to exercise that function the best. Not really make the comparison of he or she is doing this and that. I want to be doing this or that. Well, maybe my position, my function in that group is not to be doing this and that. So let me do what I have shake hands to do the best of my ability.
The Spiritism is always was about experimentation, right?
Yes.
So maybe I'm doing something and I'm good at something, but maybe I want to try something different. That's the only way to know, right?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I still don't see the competitiveness in that point.
Okay, I think I got it. Competitiveness is not something good. If you're trying to, if you aspire to achieve something good, that's not the word for that.
No, it's not the word. If competing against yourself or to better yourself, that's fine. But if competing with someone because you have this desire to be better than someone, that's a different story. That's competitiveness. But to aspire to model a good example, that's always good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Going back to Daniela said, maybe the word is improvement.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Going back to fascination, right? It is so challenging, right?
Oh.
Because when someone is under a process of fascination, they don't see anything outside of their own truth, right? What they believe is their truth is what really matters. I know we are talking about mediums because this is the medium's book, but if we expand this into society and even beyond spiritism, we can see processes of fascination everywhere, right? When especially nowadays that you can find whatever your beliefs are, you can reinforce your beliefs in the internet, even if your beliefs are completely wrong, right? And And that's a process of fascination also, right? Because if you cannot move yourself beyond your personal views and look at a broader picture, you may be in the process of fascination without being aware, and it's so hard to overcome it, right?
Mm.
You can, I believe, you can nowadays establish relationships with individuals that you don't even truly know. The so-called, I don't know if the word in English is also influencers. Those people I know who is dictating what's cool, what's not cool, what's good and what's not good, and you become, you follow X, follow Y. To me, it's absolutely ridiculous. Why would anybody follow anybody else? Follow anybody, follow Jesus. And they follow those individuals almost step by step. It's almost a collective fascination toward those so-called influencers out there. Extremely dangerous.
Yeah, this was the reason I asked the question, because the way I think, I saw people like like you, Elmo, João, Fabio. When I look, the knowledge and the experience and the way you behave, I look and say, I want that. I want to be like that. And then that's why I was trying to get a sense of competitiveness, because on my mind it was a good thing, aspiring to be like that. So that's why I wanted to draw a line to see if it was a good thing, if it was not something bad, if it was like a fascination or something. No, of course, not a fascination or obsession, but I was trying to get if it was a good or a bad thing to have it.
To seek to improve and look at the success of others in any field of practice, it's always good. To aspire to be to domain the language and be able to write some writer that you like. Yeah, that's good. But I want to say, I want to be better than him. My goal in life is I'm not going to stop until I sell more book than he or she. That's a problem. That's derives from pride primarily, and that's a problem.
And usually those people don't take advice from no one, right? They think they know everything.
During the process of fascination, yeah. And that again, that is the biggest problem. How can you make corrections when you are absolutely right and everybody else is wrong?
And it applies to spiritism, for instance, right? We are all following the teachings of Kardec, the teachings of Emmanuel, but these people, when you are in a fascination process, you think that your interpretation of the teachings is the only one that is right, that everybody is interpreting everything wrong. And this, we see this happening a lot, right? Unfortunately.
A lot, unfortunately. And the very important is make sure to make clear, those who think that this type of obsession can only touch simple, ignorant, senseless persons are mistaken. Actually, what we witness the contrary. Individuals, intellectually speaking, so well versed, so well prepared, so individuals absolutely complete the domain of the doctrine, has read all the books 3-4 times, and unfortunately become fascinated. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And what you notice in here is the incredible ability, intelligence of those obsessors. And that is the scary part. When you see individuals that we have noticed become prey to those spirits, we say that we really have to pray, because if such individuals with that experience, with that baggage, can become victims of those individuals, who am I? They can use me, they can toy me around very easily because I'm so far apart. If it's without protection, with a lot of prayers, I don't know. When you see the types of individuals who have become fascinated, you have to imagine that those spirits are extremely well prepared to play the game that they play.
Yeah, if you are looking for a sign of possible fascination, is also always the isolation. Enter into isolation, thinking that only you is right and everyone else is wrong. This is a serious sign of fascination, right? When you isolate. That's why we always in Spiritism we say that it's important to work in a team, to work in a group, to work together with others, because otherwise the risk, and we have seen in this past years so many individuals that have moved away from the movement because they follow their own truths. It's painful, but that's the reality.
Yeah, and that's the great need and importance of really being truthful to the books of the doctrine, to understand, to study, and if you want to have your own ideas, that's fine. But when you work in a group, you must have absolute fidelity to the doctrine, to the books of the doctrine.
So, in your opinion, because some people there's the intellectual part is so advanced, and you would have thought that as you both mentioned, something like that was very hard to happen. So, so do you think is a moral a lesson to be learned, since the intellectual is pretty much out of the the question, because they're doing so great on that. So you think that's a moral learning to, as we studied here before, that we learn, it's easier to learn intellectually than morally. Is that what it is? That's why that happens. That's why they fall.
In my personal opinion, yes, it is. It is about the intelligence of the heart, as Christ used to say, right? Not the intelligence of the brain there anymore. If it was just plain intellectual, those individuals would not be fascinated. They know too much. It is the intelligence of the heart that is lacking there.
Thank you. So I want to share something, because in a sense, you guys know me, and I keep telling that I don't trust myself. I tell João, make sure this is okay, make sure it's fine, and when I'm doing things, I even with you, I share with you, say, listen, I'm not sure, and you guys always encourage me to know, go ahead. If something pops up, red flag, we'll let you know. But I always had this, for lack of the better word, fear of fall on those traps. So I in a sense, I kind of run from the responsibility and share the burden, so I make sure that I'm on the right track. But yeah, so far, I think I've been learning a lot, and I'm kind of being able to navigate between the intellectual and the morally, and try to balance as much as I could to avoid this kind of obsessions.
And one of the things that is a prophylaxis against that is exactly that, the ability of sharing the work, of letting others see it and participate in it and listen to others. I think it's perhaps one of the most important prophylaxis against become prey to those individuals, those spirits. Because again, as Ron said, the isolation is a big problem when you are isolated, not share anything to anyone else. It could become dangerous.
I think the fact that you are always questioning yourself, Renato, you are always doubting yourself and always asking questions, in a way prevents, minimizes the risk of these things, right?
I agree.
When you start thinking that you reach the top and you are the king of the hill, then it becomes a problem. But I don't see you that way in any way.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Oh, please. I'm waiting for you, Fabio.
Thank you, Renato, for including me in João's and Elmo's level. I'm far from anyone. But I'm just gonna say something, that there is a very good prayer in the Gospel according to the Spiritism for mediums who are participating in mediumship groups. And if you read that, it just puts you in a position that you need to be for the work, especially. Because it just goes to all the basic tenets of Christianity and all taught us. So, and I think that I agree with you on the fact that you are always questioning. It's an indication that you're in the right path to become the medium that you need to be. Just like the examples that we have worked center is, very high elevated people, like Xavier. This group of people who receive the kind of message. There are so many people. But on the same extent, I always bring this example here. I know for a fact of other mediums who utilize their talent towards their talent in life. Is it Gilbert?
You are cutting a lot, Fabio. I
Yeah.
don't know if we can barely understand what you're saying, unfortunately. Can you are in your phone or something, or no?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, better. Yes.
Yeah, better.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, so much
Perfect.
better, yes.
Perfect.
Can I go ahead?
Yes,
You
please.
start. Please start again, Renato. Fabio, sorry.
The whole thing? The important thing, I think, is if he got the fact about the mediums prayer, the prayers for mediums at the end of the gospel. If you guys got that, all the mediums were listening, and to everybody, who's going to be initiating working as a medium, it's a very good prayer, I find, and I used to do that all the time before my work at the center on Mondays. I think that's all I need to say, because everything else is, I guess, was not important if it was not heard. Thank you, though.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I shouldn't remember the prayer itself, but to use prayers from the gospel that is objective for mediums in the exercise of mediumship, I think it's a very good idea. Let's read a little more now.
Continue? Okay.
Yes, please.
We have stated that the consequences of fascination are very serious. What happens is that, thanks to the delusion that results from it, these spirits guide the victims whom they have managed to dominate as if they were blind, and they can lead them to accept the most absurd doctrines and erroneous theories as being the sole expression of truth. Moreover, they can incite them to foolish, compromising, and even dangerous acts. One can easily and fully comprehend the difference between simple obsession and fascination. One can also understand that the spirits who produce these two types must differ from each other in character. In the former, spirits who attach themselves to mediums only inconvenience them by their tenacity, from which the mediums try to break free. It is much different in the latter, for in order to achieve their purposes, such spirits must be skillful, cunning, and deeply hypocritical, since they can only succeed at being deceptive if they pose themselves by wearing a mask and putting on a false appearance of virtue. Grand words such as charity, humility, and love for God serve as their calling card. But through through it all shine signs of how little evolved they are, which only those who are fascinated cannot perceive. That is why these spirits dread, more than anything else, persons who see things clearly. Their tactic is nearly always that of inspiring the mediums to avoid whoever might open their eyes. Thus, by avoiding any contradiction, they are always certain to be in the right.
Thanks. So I think we pretty much cover most of that here, but you can see here the ability of those spirits who are causing those fascinations. And it's, as I said, there's a huge gap between the so-called simple to fascination. Again, in a simple obsession, the spirits there just to have fun. They don't have an agenda, so to say. They don't have a platform to stand on. They just living life and having fun, so to say. Spirits dealing with fascination, and is primarily, especially spirits seeking to fascinate mediums. They have a platform. They have an agenda. It is pretty obvious that the spirits have a program, a plan to disrupt the doctrine as a whole, to not allow the doctrine to progress, to create disharmony amongst the members, students, practitioners of spirituals. They're trying to really delay the progress, the advancement of the doctrine. They target mediums. Now, let's assume that we have a medium who has studied all the books of the codification, had read most of the books of Andrea Luiz and Joanna de Angelis, and it's then in the work of charity, doing things. If a spirit is going to try to target that medium, to try to subjugate, try to fascinate that medium, of course, they have to find something in that medium that they can use as a target. And as I said before, undoubtedly it will be that little speckle of pride, that little speckle of vanity, that they will not miss. That's the big bullseyes that they will use in general. Okay. And they will not come approach that medium saying, oh, this thing of Jesus, it's wrong. Everything is wrong. This thing of charity is not a good idea. This is more for the simple ones because that's not gonna fly with those mediums. They know too well to say, oh, get out of here. You know. So those spirits, they will target those mediums, find that speckled of pride or vanity, and they will go along with the things, with the Christianity, with the think of charity, with the think of fixing the things that needs to be fixed in spiritism because the doctrine is somewhat outdated, and we bring to you now the right approach. We bring to you the true Christianity, what needs to be fixed in spiritism, and it's wrong. And they will present a platform on how to make things better. And he or she, as a leader, has to be chosen, has been chosen because he or she is the one who are well prepared, who are more advanced, who can really lead the movement of improving spiritism and things of that matter. They are extremely well prepared because if they come to any one of those spirits, or any one of us, and say, forget about Christ. He had some good ideas, but the guy was, he fell. Only by the fact that he ended up in the cross shows that, he tried something good, but he's not the real deal. We're going to present to you now the real deal. Most of us are going to laugh, walk away, and say, come on, man. You're my breakaway here. You think I'm that stupid? Then we approach us with this the story of how we are coming from Jesus. We are part of the movement of Christianity where you bring about this this transformation of the planet, and we need you to be with us. We have chosen you to be the leader of this movement because such and such and such and such. Now, Elmo, full of pride, say, oh, they chose me because I am good, because I'm better, because I am so well prepared, and I'm gonna go along with that. And then Renato gonna come to me, João gonna come to me, José gonna come to me and say, how do you? We've seen those different ideas that are coming about. Where is it coming from? Don't you see that they're completely going in a different direction? I say, no. You guys don't understand. We have to take this new that direction that I'm going, because that's what bring about the transformation of the planet. And I may come out of the most absurd, stupid ideas. And there is nothing that João and Nato Sarah can do, because now I'm at the hands of this guy. I bought that idea that I am the good one who will make the necessary transformations for the planet to transform itself. So they are well prepared. It's not that they're going to say, forget about Christianity. No, they're saying, no. Christianity is all the way, and you're going to lead us. You're going to be the great guy who's going to make this transformation, and the world will recognize you as the one who have saved Christianity on the planet. They are smart. They know what they're doing. And that's how they impregnate those ideas in things that are supposed to run well. But because of our problem, our speckled of vanity, desire to be recognized, desire to be the one on top, that create these problems. And now it becomes impossible because I'm not going to listen to João, I'm not going to listen to Renato. because I'm listening to that guy who is helping me to save the world, to save the doctrine. I am the best one, I know better. Because João, Renato, they don't have the ability to receive the higher spirits that I'm receiving right now. Do you see the difficulty, how hard it is to deal with this situation? It's not because I want to destroy spiritism. On the contrary, I want to save spiritism. Now I am the big savior. And that's how smart they are. And that's why we start seeing individuals move in a different direction. And because they are so well prepared, they bring others with them. And they form this differentiations of spiritism, that big problem that we are faced right now.
Hey, Elmo, but I mean, I don't know if the percentage, and it doesn't really matter. But isn't that why we have so many spiritual groups all over the countries? When get to a point that people don't agree necessarily, they don't see spiritism the same way, and they maybe one individual influence other people, and they go about to do the same thing but with a different approach, and not necessarily is might be a fascination. It's just um, a difference in opinions or whatever. I don't know. Just throwing out there.
Yeah, you have to be careful with difference of opinion, not call difference of opinion fascination, because sometimes
But how do you
Yes.
know? Because usually the fascination you have with one individual, and that individual might have a strong influence on the others. So how do you know that is not a fascination, it's something else?
Give an example. So let's say that tomorrow I come to Georgia side and say, our group has to start serving soup outside on every Sunday. And Jussara and João, we sit together, we think, no, we don't think we should be doing that. And that's part of the city. It's a bit complicated. We don't have the resources, so it's not really necessary. Spiritism in America does not require for us to take this kind of approach in charity. You should put our resources in, I don't know, in books, something like that. And I say, oh, I disagree. I think every spiritual center has to provide soup to others. And if you don't agree, I'm gonna make my own group. I'm gonna take Soraya with me, I'm gonna take Renat with me, they agree with me, we're gonna form another group. And we practice spiritism in accordance to the doctrine, doing all the right things with accordance to the doctrine, not try to be better than SGNY, just have a different approach in the exercise of charity. We believe that soup is important, and they understand that soup is not important in New York City, that we could use our resources doing other things. Different opinions, still gonna exercise, practice spiritualism in the same way. The difference, the one is give soup, the other one is not. It's fine. That's fine. Now I come to Georgia side and say we have to take a different directions. I saw the work that is being done by such and such person in Chicago, and she made already a few corrections in the spirits book. You have to change the direction they go with. That's a different story. Now I'm altering and make a differentiation, the whole thing of the doctrine. That's a good chance that Elmo have become fascinated that the Elmo now is trying to save SGNY from spiritism, the old spiritism, and you need to bring the new spiritism to flourish. That's a different thing. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, one
Incompatibility among us directors, this is gonna happen, and then and maybe come to a point that I cannot work with João anymore. We have become we are arguing more than working together. That is better if we split. And I continue to do the work towards spiritism, and I continue doing the work towards spiritism. And that's the way a lot of groups are formed. But with fidelity to the doctrine, with fidelity to the true simple Christianity. People are not going to get along all the time, not even inside the spiritism, but that's impossible. There will be incompatibilities. And that's how a lot of groups are formed. Nothing wrong with that.
So when a person is being fascinated, the spirit will exert an influence saying that you are better than this, so let's do something different. That's the fascinating part.
That's one example, yes. That is one example. Usually during fascination, the spirits will lead me to believe that whatever they are leading me to do is the right way to do, and I don't have to listen to anyone else. Period. And I buy that.
So
I can give you an example, Renato, that came to my mind now. That you will see how difficult it is. So the spirit comes and try to say, only the gospel is important. Let's 100% of our time dedicate our studies to the gospel, because the words of Jesus are all that matters. The rest is not important. Let's focus on the gospel. The gospel is the only thing. Let's open a spiritist center to study the gospel from Monday to Sunday. Let's work to take the gospel to everyone else. You see that the fascination there, but is anything wrong with the gospel? No. So you see the danger of how they work.
Yeah, but on that case, at least I would think that it's pretty clear that if only the gospel was important, we would not have all the other books and the codifications. So
But
that's
they will
exactly
be.
the point. I'm sorry, João. That
Yeah, go
we
ahead.
all can see that, except the ones being fascinated. See, everybody can see why. Why do you have all the books, the codification then? And the fascinators say, oh, you can discard everything else. Everything else is garbage. The only thing important is the gospel.
yes, yeah, I need to think a little bit more on this.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Well, you know why it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I have to stop here.
Yeah, I went up. We make our final prayer as we lift up our hearts and minds. We give thanks to God, our Father, to our beloved Master Jesus Christ. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors of SCGNY for the guidance and inspiration they received here today. And we ask that we may continue to receive, for we are in need. Protection, inspiration. Do not deviate from the pathway of goodness. To resist the temptations that we meet along the way. To maintain ourselves in constant contact with our spiritual guides and free from any harmful inferior influences. Send vibrations of love and peace for brothers and sisters who are suffering the difficulties of this pandemic, asking the that the scientific community may find the answers to assist, to provide us, to protect us, that our minds, our hearts may vibrate towards love, towards goodness, to clean up our atmospheres from all of those harmful energies that we are receiving. May God, may our Master Jesus Christ be in our hearts, in our minds, and may be able to come back next week to continue our studies. And we ask permission to close this meeting. So be it.